You're listening to Health Coach Conversations, a podcast where our conversations help health coaches all around the world to level up our businesses and to get more clients. Hello and welcome. I am Kathy Sikora, founder of the Health Coach Group and host of Health Coach Conversations. Today, I am talking with Riana Milne. She has close to 25 years of experience as a licensed mental health counselor and expert, certified life, love, and trauma recovery and mindset coach, and is recognized internationally for her trademarked life and love transformation coaching systems, awarded one of the top 15 transformation coaches globally in December of 2023 by New York Weekly Magazine, and the top 10 coaches to follow by Wealth Insider Magazine. She was also featured in Forbes, Disrupt Magazine, Influencer Daily, and on many website publications. Riana graces the cover of the September 2023 Fashion Republic magazine, which also includes an in-depth profile of her coaching, counseling, and modeling careers. Riana was honored with the 2022 GIVA International Award for Top Female Entrepreneur of the Year and Top Global Wellness Coach. And the Global Trade Chamber named her one of the 100 most successful women around the world in 2021. Riana is also an advanced certified clinical trauma and addictions professional at her company, Lessons in Life and Love Coaching, LLC. She's globally recognized for her podcast, Lessons in Life and Love, and her #1 bestsellers, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships, and Have Your Love, the Love You Deserve, and Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success, which address healing from both childhood traumas and traumatic relationships by learning the mindset for success, personal transformation, and creating conscious, loving relationships with oneself and others. Her website is https://rianamilne.com, where she offers many free resources for singles and couples. Riana's website is rianamilne.com, and her flow page is flowpage/Riana Milne/ for other resources. We'll have those all underneath the podcast so that you can easily access her information. So tell us a little bit more about your work as a life, love, and relationship coach.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on your show, Kathy. It's nice to be here. I appreciate it. And hopefully we can help our listeners learn a whole lot today about childhood and love trauma. So a little bit about my education. I've been teaching Mindset for Success for over 40 years. And I've been a licensed mental health counselor for 25 years this year. And I've been a certified life, love, trauma recovery mindset coach for now 15 years and a certified clinical trauma professional advanced level. I'm also a #1 best-selling author and have had various magazine appearances. But what I do is I help singles and couples, women and men, straight and LGBTQ clients from ages 16, my oldest is 80, to create the life they desire and to have the love that they deserve.
Where did you get certified? If you don't mind, most of our listeners, I'll tell you this, most of our listeners are doctors and health coaches and nutritionists and life coaches, and they're all in the wellness arena. So,
Right.
Yeah, if we can speak to, I'm sure everything that you
I have
say.
a triple master's in clinical psychology from Rowan University, graduated summa cum laude. Relationship Coaching Institute, I went for 1 year for singles, life, and relationship coaching for dating for singles, and then a second year for coaching. So everyone would know of RCI. And then I took advanced level CCTP over the past few years. So I specialize in trauma recovery.
And every place that you went to and all the classes that you took, and I'm sure you're a lifelong learner too, so you continue
Yes.
on. What do you think has been the most valuable experience for learning?
Hiring the 13 coaches I've hired to help me get my message out to around the world. To be honest with you, I could not have done that without the education of how to do an online school, how to do my own podcast. I hired the best, business coach, Lisa Sachovich, for a year. So I invested 85,000 a year to work with her to get all my materials professional. I'm also a number one best-selling author on Amazon. My 400-page book, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. It has been out there for a couple of years. It's part of my curriculum. My curriculum is trademarked because of the research that I have done that has gone into my books. Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success is my second book. Actually, I've written 13 books, but those are the two that are part of the curriculum and on sale. My notebooks are not for sale. Those go with my coaching clients who invest in coaching. But I'm also still a licensed psychotherapist, again, 25 years. So I also see counseling clients.
How does trauma factor into that? How important is that piece of it?
It's essential. It's everything. Research came out in 2021 that 100% of us have childhood trauma. So in 2012, I created an assessment very different than the one I saw from Kaiser Permanente about 4 years later in 2016. Mine is called the Childhood Trauma Checklist. It's very simple for my clients to use. It's very straight and to the point. And that's one of the first assessments I use before I would even agree to work with anyone. There's actually 6 assessments that they do before I take a client on to see if they're a good fit. But for example, my childhood trauma checklist included abandonment issues where theirs did not, what shocked me. It also included bullying or feeling different or left out, which is my number 7 called personal trauma. It also includes sibling trauma. If a sibling was born with any medical issues, or the sibling bullied them, or simply they were the golden child, the favored child because they were more handsome or beautiful, or the star athletes. So I have a lot more traumas that people have gone through and can recognize. For example, trauma 1 is addiction in the family. I failed to mention I'm also LCADC, licensed certified drug and alcohol addictions counselor, as many years as I've been a therapist. So with that one, I talk about 12 addictions: drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was a cheater, porn use, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, social media addiction, these types of addictions that overrun a parent's life and leaves the child feeling emotionally abandoned. Kaiser Permanente talked about drugs and alcohol. I'm like, well, where's the rest? So it's fine that their list, and I love that their study with 17,000 people with weight loss issues, finally came out in a big way and identified childhood trauma. That was awesome. I was one quiet voice in 2015, getting the message out about my list and what I was finding and the solutions that I came up with to help my clients heal and move on from both childhood and love trauma. And without healing childhood trauma, it definitely leads on to love relationship trauma.
That's exhausting.
Which part?
All of it.
Well, not if you love what you do. Yes, it is. It's a lot to study and get together. But my work, as I was creating my materials, I was still working, right? So I was in private practice. My practice is called Therapy by the Sea. And as I was doing my coaching, I was starting to create worksheets from my research for my workbooks and handing them out to my clients. So, Riana, you're going to put a book together one day. I'm like, yeah, when I have a chance. So my workbooks for my singles and couples are 150 pages. So that really helps them. It's like kind of a bibliotherapy. They write what they're feeling. They send it to me. Then I know what they need. So it's personalized and we worked as a team. That's why I love the coaching model.
How long does it normally take them to get through 150 pages? Is that a pretty long period of time?
There's a 4-month and a 6-month trauma recovery program. So it really depends on their level of trauma and what they're seeking. So again, it's tailored to what their particular needs are. I love doing the one-on-one model. I'm not the type of coach or counselor that has 500 people in a class. Even when I have a group, it's usually 12 or less because I'm very conscientious about my people getting personal transformation. And coaching for me, my method is more educational. So counseling, you only have so much time without materials. You're just processing feelings. It's not giving a whole lot of solutions in record time and really keeping an eye on the progress. Coaching for me is a rainbow. You don't know what you don't know. And I say you can't change what you don't know or understand. I have gone through love traumas. I was there. I went to 7 therapist friends who had no idea what was wrong with my partner or how to help me. And I said, I'm going through post-traumatic shock. They're like, what, for a love relationship? I said, well, yeah, with what happened. And there's nothing defined in our DSM-4 for either childhood trauma or love trauma, and there should be. So, I was just coming out with my method that helped people heal from their trauma. And through this educational model, they were learning skills and practicing skills and having more conscious awareness that was overriding the subconscious that was ruling their lives. They stopped falling in love by chemistry alone. They were using solid skills to find an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious partner. So they went on, I went on to find emotionally healthy love. So I've been doing this a lot of years with thousands of people. Even in my 20s, when I had a model and talent school and agency, I was teaching mindset. And, we'd take people that wanted to be an actor or a dancer, a rockette, or someone who wanted to be on Baywatch, and he was an auto mechanic. They're all in Erie, Pennsylvania. Well, what got them their dreams? Learning the mindset for success. And I was teaching that as a model and talent school director. So some of my experiences with therapy with children is I worked in a hospital unit for children ages 5 through 19, and I got mostly the critical cases, the kids that were cutting, suicidal, eating disorders, the more critical cases that ended up inpatient. And then I worked in the schools. I was a SAC counselor, which is a student assistance counselor. So I worked with all the emotionally upset kids, the oppositional defiant, the ADHD kids, the bullies, the bullied. So I was teaching them mindset skills and communication skills to also overcome. And a lot of these kids that were acting up came from homes with childhood trauma. So that was all interrelated. And then I also had a job, internships. I had 5 internships to get all my degrees. One was at a drug and alcohol center, one for teenagers, and another one from women from the prison system in downtown Atlantic City. So I have worked with various people of cultures, backgrounds, ages, economic status, and the top 10 traumas I named still applied to all of them. And that's why my tool has been very easy to use. And it really brings insight to people to say, oh, okay, this happened. Therefore, this is why I'm doing this. So again, once there's understanding, they're more open to change and wanting to break from those toxic patterns that are either breaking their heart or holding them back in life, making them feel stuck, and so forth.
Would you say that the kids that you worked with were lucky? I mean, they were one of the few that had their problems addressed at that age, and most people
Yes.
go into adulthood without even addressing any of that?
Absolutely. I always say the first person a school should hire is a SAC counselor. And sadly, we are the first to be laid off, but they will keep the football team. So this is a huge problem because, yes, I am a mental health counselor, but I also knew coaching techniques as well when I was working in the schools. I was probably one of the first to do meditation in years 2000 to 2004 with my students to calm the brain and the body down so that they could go and learn. As I was doing behavioral modification for my kids. Of course, I sat on child study team in northern New Jersey. I worked at a high school called Hackensack, and I was working with kids who were in gangs for the Crips and the Bloods. But I actually had my daughter who was singing with one of the top hip hop artists at the time. So they loved Miss Rihanna. They thought she was cool. So I could relate to the kids. I liked their music. I liked their fashion, and I got their story. So, this is critical in our schools. I worked at every grade level, kindergarten, middle school, high school, and college at Rowan University Student Center. So no matter what had come in, I always went back to addressing the original childhood trauma piece, then what was happening them for them today, and bridging the two, and always teaching and understanding, and then the skills that they needed to start changing and feel better about themselves, increasing self-love, confidence, their empowerment. A lot of women needed empowerment skills. They couldn't speak up in these toxic relationships. They were afraid to leave. So there is a lot of education that needs to be done. And that's why I love the coaching model. That's a teaching model.
Need a comprehensive solution? The Health Coach Group's Platinum Packages offers a business in a box, providing everything you need to start and grow your wellness practice. Let's build your future together. Visit thehealthcoachgroup.com.
So how does the childhood trauma hold them back as they get older with their love relationships?
Okay. So the first thing, would you like me to go into what the top 10 traumas are so people know which ones I've named?
That would be great.
And then I'll make the correlations. Okay. So that will make a little bit more sense. So the first one, like I said, is any addiction in the home. So we named drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning your parent was cheating and you knew it, porn use, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, social media addiction. So I name those as the addictions of today. Second one is any verbal messaging that was negative or put downs. Did you hear the words, I love you? Did you try your best and hear great job, kiddo, or still not good enough? What messages did you hear growing up? Also with verbal messaging, how did you watch your parents communicate? Did they fight and yell through a disagreement, or could they sit down and discuss it with loving kindness? That's important. Trauma 3 is emotional abuse and neglect, and that comes in all forms, even with a lot of us baby boomers who had to work and the kids were called latchkey kids. They had the key and they went home by themselves. That is a form of abandonment, even though we were supporting our children as single moms. So we have to look at all these different types of things that had occurred in our children's lives. The fourth one is any physical abuse, rape, or molestation. Now, again, childhood traumas could be within the home, or the home could be amazing, but they happened at school or within the community or on a sports team. So any childhood experiences are what I'm talking about. Okay, so that also includes inside or outside of the family. The next one is a big one, abandonment. And I name fault or no fault abandonment. A no fault abandonment is an example of a parent dying early. Certainly not their fault, but extremely traumatic for the child. Or if a parent is deployed for war. Now, I was in an elementary school during Afghanistan and Iraq. And a lot of the kids' grades who had military parents just suffered. And all of a sudden they're identified ADHD. I'm like, oh, wait. This child's going through trauma right now. They're worried about their mom coming home from Afghanistan, so I don't see them as ADHD. And then I would work with them to calm the brain and the body so they could refocus, right? And other skills, of course. And another no fault would be a parent that travels a lot and they're not home, but that's how they're supporting the family. A fault abandonment would be a parent never involved with their child. They were involved while the couple was together. They broke up. They rarely see their child, or they break their promises around seeing the child. Or even the parent could be in the household. The child goes there and they're not emotionally engaging. This is a prime example in my counseling practice. A child will come into me. I don't want to go to my dad's. He just sits there and watches football all weekend. And I'm in my room doing nothing. So that is an anger of abandonment because they just don't seem to care. Okay. The next one is if you were part of foster care or adoption or had to go live in another household because your parents couldn't keep you there. Now, again, I was shocked to see foster care not on the Kaiser Permanente list. Why? Because I worked with the kids in the foster care system at the hospital. Okay, these were a big part of my caseload. I'm like, how could they forget our foster care kids and all the trauma that they're going through. Okay, the next one is the personal trauma. As I said, if you feel different, you don't fit in, you're identified ADHD at school, you might be the only African American student in an all Caucasian school, coming out as LGBTQ, not being accepted for that. There's anything about feeling different or not fitting in is trauma 7. Trauma 8 is a sibling trauma, which I already named. Trauma 9 now has 2 parts. There is more than 10 traumas, and there was a trauma 11, which I had to bring down after I devised this list in 2011 and 2012. And that is community trauma, which is one of our biggest ones today. Our COVID epidemic was what it has done to our young students, our Mother Nature events, which are getting more and more severe and wiping out large communities. And of course, that impacts the family. And the other part of trauma 9 is family trauma. Now, yes, they name if a parent's incarcerated, and a lot of people will say, well, that doesn't happen to too many kids. And my tough schools that I worked in, there was a lot of kids with incarcerated parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts. So I worked with those kids. But this is also growing up with economic hardship, growing up in a dangerous neighborhood, hearing a lot of lack messages. We don't have money for this or that. It keeps a kid in a very anxious state. So there's a lot around family trauma. The military family is moving every 2 to 4 years here in America, puts our kids as a new kid in school every 2 to 4 years. Okay. Then trauma 10 is mental health issues in mom or dad. The 2 that I name are the most difficult, just for simplicity, is borderline personality. When they're good, they're great. When they're bad, they're horrid. And you never know what you're going to get. So that's raising a very anxious child. When they open the door, they don't know if they're going to have a good mom or bad mom when they come home. And the other one is bipolar or manic depressive. And depression can show up as anger, checking out emotionally, or extreme fatigue. And sometimes people think the manic phase is the high and happy phase, but that's usually wrapped around an addiction. So let's say mom goes on a spending spree. She's really happy with everything she bought. And then depression hits for 3 months when she can't pay her bills afterwards. So these are the ones that I describe to my clients, and they can really then understand, oh, yes, this did happen to me. And then we can have a full and open conversations about it. So those are the top 10 traumas that I name.
That's a lot. Can you imagine a kid that even deals with one, much less a lot of times more than that? If they're dealing with one, they're probably dealing with 3 or 4.
Most of my clients have 4 to 6 they can name really simply. And some people don't even see one, or they have normalized it so much. Like I had one client that said no to physical abuse. And then later she go, yeah, when we were hit with a switch, which I knew because a lot of my kids in Southern New Jersey were hit with switches, a tree branch. I hated to have to go pick that off the tree. And I said, oh, but you didn't name physical trauma. Well, that was normal. All the kids in the neighborhood got hit with a switch. You see, so it's normalizing, but that's what children's minds do to help to say, well, that's normal. And that helps them to accept this pain and the trauma they're going through. Because again, we're a victim of our environment. We're a product of our environment. And as children, we have no power to change anything. So we try to just normalize it and accept it that other kids have this too. So that's part of the survival patterns of the children.
Right. I was interested in the fact that you said that somebody was diagnosed ADHD and you said, wait, they're going through this trauma. Are there a lot of kids that are being pilled up?
Yes.
And they're going through something that makes them look like something else?
Yes. It's also can be partially diet. So I do everything holistically first. I work with the parents to check on their diet. We do behavior modification at home, in the classroom, and in my office, which was called Miss Riana's Relaxation Room. I had the behavior modification if they did well. First, we used extrinsic rewards. So I had a treasure chest. If they did good for the week, they could have 4 rewards. If they did good for the day, they could have 1. And then what happens over time is that they notice, wow, when I'm good, people like me more, and my teacher's not so mad, and I can focus and study more. So the behavioral modification, the dietary changes, changes with mom and dad at home. If I get the opportunity in a school to talk to mom and dad, a lot of times they don't want to come in because they don't want to reveal the family secrets. But then I also empower the child with a lot of trauma recovery skills and how to handle if mom and dad are fighting. These are the things you can do, So there's a lot, again, education and coaching someone to overcome their trauma. But yes, a lot of people were fast today. Let's get them medicated. I'm like, well, hold up. Let me try some other things first. I even did music therapy. Like, they love Louis Miguel. And I don't speak Spanish, but his music really hits a certain center of the brain that makes you very calm and relaxed. They might walk in, my elementary kids, Miss Riana, will you put on Mr. Louis for me today? I said, did you have a rough morning? Yeah, I just need Mr. Louis. So
that's good when they learn how to cope too, isn't
it? Exactly. So then I would, send a note home, to the parents, and they may have loved that music anyway, because we had a lot of Spanish speaking families in the elementary school that I worked in. So, yeah, there's all kinds of tools and tricks that kids relate to. And if we can get them self-modified, right, and calm down, because if cortisol is up, their fight, flight, or freeze response, memory and focus is down. So if they're coming in from a really rough morning, they're sitting there, oh, my parents getting divorced. What if dad leaves again? Then mom's going to be mad. That's what they're thinking of. They're not looking at and absorbing math facts.
Mm-hmm.
So
I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but you brought up some things about nutrition, and that's where the health coaches can come in. They can't, do the work that a psychologist does. The best thing that they can do is refer someone to somebody that they can work with. But a health coach could work with food and exercise and finding ways to relax, right? Are those
absolutely?
Yeah.
We all work together. I had several sources that I turned to. One was a medical doctor in holistic health and had a health food store. So he would do the dietary plan, not me. So if the parents were open to it, that was free of charge for them to go. If they bought products or vitamins, that was on them. But yeah, I had all kinds of people I referred to. And it's nice to work as a team on these things. I have a lot of people referred to me when they're like, Riana, I'm seeing a lot of trauma here. I'm not trained in that. You help this client of mine. She keeps eating because she's so upset because this has not healed for her yet. Right. So it is interrelated, but we all have our specialty areas.
Starting a wellness business can be daunting, but not with the Health Coach Group. From business strategies to consistent income streams, we've got you covered. Let's create a thriving practice together. Visit thehealthcoachgroup.com to learn more.
Are people that have gone through trauma as a child and even as an older child or a young adult, are they more likely to get into a troubling relationship?
Yes. Let's go back to relationships, because I did not forget your other question, Kathy, when you said, how's this show up in relationships? So let's talk about that. First of all, it has been proven that unhealed childhood trauma impacts 7 life areas. Okay, so one is relationships, one is emotional, one is mental health, one is behavior. Those are all tied together when we're talking about love relationships. So let's say someone went through abandonment issues, right? They are still craving the love of that parent they did not get. So they will be very prone to someone that love bombs them. They're often, people that are often manipulated. Unfortunately, a lot of people and coaches are teaching be vulnerable. I don't. I teach be empowered. Know what you're doing when you're dating. Know the questions to ask. I come up with 24 questions they should be asking date 1 or date 2. It's not just sit back and be vulnerable. They're like, great, I can do whatever I want to this person because she's telling me everything, So there's different skills that you have to learn. But if you are prone to abandonment, you're also prone to codependency, seeking outside of attention if your partner rejects you. You're looking for love outside of yourself instead of having the self-love you need to say, this is toxic and this is not for me. Goodbye, good luck, God bless, I wish you well, but I don't see us moving forward. And then my people just move on and say next. They don't linger. They don't go back. There's this pattern called RRS, relationship repetition syndrome. And this is true. The research shows people who are tied up in this cycle break up and get back together a total of 7 times on average. So they'll break up and then the hearts and flowers stage happen, the wheel of domestic violence. And then, they'll take them back. And then the average is 7 to 10 days, there'll be another explosion or another toxic event. So they keep holding on, thinking this person will change, or they believe all their promises, and then it never happens. So that's one form of RRS. The other one is same person, different face. So they'll break up with a toxic one, read 100 self-help books and say, I got it now. Then go back out and date and end up with the same type of person over again. And after the third time, that's usually when I get them. It's like, Riana, I don't get it. What am I doing wrong? And it's a very frustrating place to be because I was there many years ago before I did my research and nobody was able to help me. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. And that's when I went into the psychological journals and read and researched and threw my materials together. So that's one thing. Another thing women do a lot is people pleasing. That's when they had a difficult parent and they thought, well, if I'm really the good girl and do everything they ask me to do and really please them and clean and watch after my siblings, they'll love me more. Well, that pattern stays with them. I remember I had a couple come in to me and the woman says, I do everything to show my love for my husband and the kids and they do nothing. The husband's there, I don't ask you to do all that stuff. And she's angry, exhausted, and resentful, obviously. But this was her pattern. And she kept trying over and over to please him. It was just bothering him. So she needed to learn more boundary work, right? Jealousy and control. Where does that come from? That comes from trauma number 2, verbal messages. What did you hear? Were you good enough or was it never good enough? And trauma 7, did you fit in? Or were you bullied and teased because you were skinny and gawky and called a nerd, or, smart and called a nerd, or, a chubby child and teased for that, So even though you change as an adult, those wounds are still there. There's perfectionism. There's blaming behavior when an adult never takes responsibility or says, I'm sorry, can't say they're wrong. Of course, our narcissists, sociopaths, are on this childhood trauma scale. So once I find out how many traumas somebody have, what is the severity levels? Our sociopaths and narcissists have usually 9 or 10 with severity levels of 9 to 10. Okay, so these are some things that can happen. A lot of addiction is formed early on for trying to escape the trauma. Not all. Some addictions happen after a car accident and medical use, of opiates and so forth. Impulsivity is someone that grew up sometimes with not enough or hearing lack messages. And let's say it's a guy finally earning a good salary, but the family's still struggling. And he's there, I want the shiny red sports car. I deserve it. So without talking to his wife about it, he does an impulse buy because he wants it. And then they all suffer later for it. But he has this feeling of, I deserve it. I suffered as a kid. I work hard now. And impulsivity is also the area where cheaters fall in line. Well, she didn't want to have sex with me today. So the waitress is coming on to me and she's interested. So I deserve this, or nobody will know. And that's impulse is where a lot of the couples get into trouble. So there's a lot of combinations of, because this happened, this is going on now. So it really, each person in front of me is different. So it's different for everyone that presents. But once I know their childhood trauma checklist, I also do the ACOA checklist done by Sylvia Kay, Ronnie Fisher. I do that one. It shows me today how their feelings about themselves are showing up today versus I have them scale it differently. Scale it, this happened to me in the past and this is how I'm feeling today. So there's both still marked. I don't feel good enough, or success is easier for other people more than me. So there's a lot I look at there. And I have a date. Are you really ready to date? Quiz that they do. So I do several assessments to really show me where they're at. And then through my questioning that I've been doing 25 years, I get deeper into their concerns in their discovery session.
Can you give us some examples of the destructive and self-sabotaging patterns that may emerge in a dating or exclusive relationship in business or within the self if someone has unhealed childhood traumas?
Yes. Okay. So I just gave you a couple on relationships, right? The impulse hurts couples. Okay. In business, if they grew up with a lot of lack messaging, we don't have the money for this. And then someone wants to be an entrepreneur. They may invest so much and then they're like, well, what if it doesn't work for me? Or it's a lot of money. I know when someone says, you spent what on a business coach? I said, well, it's worth it to me. Well, you could have bought 2 cars. I don't need 2 cars. I need to take my message globally. So it's a choice I was confident about and empowered about, right? Where some people might invest and be scared and petrified the whole time, or afraid to try what they're learning, and then they fail because they set themselves up mentally to fail, which we call mindset. So if they don't have the mindset for success, which again, I've been teaching over 40 years, they're going to fail in whatever it is that they want to do. They self-sabotage. Right. So that happens a lot in business, or it could be the tyrant boss or a salesperson always trying to prove they're good enough or I'm better than the other salespeople on this team and will maybe lie or cheat to get a few extra sales. So it can show up in various ways. I do a lot of corporate talks around this type of thing as well. And then in life and self-love, let's say someone is on a dating app and they get ghosted. Well, someone who lacks self-love may text at someone back a toxic message themselves. You're a jerk. Why would you do this? You need to grow up, blah, 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 blah. They could do that, or they could sit and cry and say, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. Why am I even trying dating? So they either take it out externally or internally against themselves. And then they're stuck in fear. They have this fear-based mindset where I don't want to try. No one's going to date me. If it's meant to be, God will give me my partner. And they sit at home in their living room weekend after weekend. I wonder, why is God failing them? Okay, so we teach the empower method. If someone ghosts you, our point is, thanks God for showing me he's the wrong one. Next. So we have different mindset tools and teaching the confidence and empowerment. But with all my singles from that Are You Really Ready to Date checklist of 10 items, and they're all free on my website, by the way, that people can get these resources at rianamilne.com. But when they do this, I say, okay, great. This is our roadmap of what we must work on before you go out to date. Because you don't want to go out and date and take your problems with you and hope someone fixes them. We are fixing them. And then when you are empowered and say, my life is amazing, now you would never settle for less. You are going to attract someone who is emotionally healthy, evolved, conscious, and has their life together because now you do too. So that is our approach to getting our singles out there. As a singles coach, I don't throw them out there right away. There's a part A, which is healing the trauma, teaching mindset, teaching balance in life, spirituality and faith in themselves, self-love. We do all of that first, and then they get the dating skills, and then they go out and date. And their success levels are so much better that way.
There's a lot of relationships that seem perfect. Why do things turn toxic once they get serious?
Okay. So you have to be very careful, everyone, if you're single and dating, for the person that's the love bomber and the manipulator. I happen to live in Florida, and there is a lot of them here. This is a sociopath going after someone for pleasure, profit, or lifestyle advancement. That is an easy definition of a sociopath. And they will be the perfect partner very early on. We have something called the 90-day rule, where you are really slow to get involved and get intimate. You want friends first, be friends first, and see, are their actions matching their words? Are they a good person? How do they treat common people on the street or people that serve them, like their waiters? Are they snapping at their waiters, or are they kind? Things like this. They're looking at very little nuanced things. How are they answering the questions that they are geared up to ask? So we are looking at a lot of different things, which we call conscious dating. Okay, we do not just date on chemistry. As I said before, it's the most dangerous way to date. And unfortunately, that's what our society teaches. Sleeping Beauty, you got the handsome prince, he wakes you up and is like, oh, we're in love, let's get married. And that's what we are trying to change and slow down. So it's conscious awareness that we're teaching. So you have to be careful of the love bomber. There is a great series on Netflix, if people haven't seen it yet, called Dirty John, which is a perfect example. The sociopath going after a really kind, lovely, hardworking, intelligent woman who has done well for herself and her family. And he plays a perfect part of the great boyfriend and manipulates her slowly over time. So you have to know that these people are real, they are out there, and you better know what you're doing with dating so it doesn't happen to you. Yeah.
If you have less trauma, are you less likely to fall for that kind of
You
person?
could really have one trauma and still fall for that. So it's not really the number, it's the severity level and the combination. Like I said, most people have more than one. There's several. And we have to look at their relationship patterns that they had from dating. So it's from teenage years up to this current point. What were those relationships like? What kind of people did they attract then? If you've had a couple of marriages, usually, again, they're the same type of people. So why are they attracting the same type of people? Again, this is from their past childhood trauma that has not been healed yet. So I have to bring that up to their reality that this is happening because of this. This is subconscious. You're choosing these type of people subconsciously. The brain likes homeostasis. That means it chooses what it knows. It likes what's normal, but it can't decipher, is that good or is it bad? So chemistry takes you back to the toxic patterns of your past, right? So we have to become more consciously aware and work with those so that you don't end up continually hurt by people that are not well intended.
How can, and I guess really is, can you heal unconscious trauma? And if they don't take action to do this, what happens?
First of all, absolutely, childhood trauma can be healed. That's what I've been doing for years. And we can heal the love trauma. It's funny, my clients say, Riana, I hear your voice in my head saying, if this happens, do this, if that, do that. So they are well prepared. It is an education. I say there is an art and psychology to dating successfully to attract the right person for you. And that's what people need to learn. Well, a lot of people that have read just self-help books, or my clients say they've tried therapy for 6, 7 years and are still attracting the same kind of person. What's happening? I always say, seek out an expert in trauma recovery. This is a very intensive area of work, of therapy, and of coaching. Make sure you get someone who is well educated and certified. It's not really something you can do easily on your own. This is why in all my trauma instruction, it says it's about 6 months to heal trauma wounds. So, what are you doing during those 6 months? Well, my people are getting a whole lot of education, and practice. So the more they're practicing the mindset tools that I teach them and the trauma recovery tools, the more informed they are and they catch it. They start catching it and changing it and practicing the new skills. And then once they're over the rainbow where the pot of gold is, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was like this and dating these kind of men and put up with it. Or vice versa, the men come to me as well. How could I keep going for the glam girl when, they keep breaking my heart and stealing my money? Whatever the case is, what was it that he needed that for? Well, he said he was called a nerd in high school. He could never get the girl he liked or he wanted. Now he wants the flashiest girl he could find, right? Because that part of his ego is not healed yet. So it's very interesting work, when you see the various combinations.
Okay, so can you name 5 things that are in an emotionally healthy, evolved, and consciously aware relationship?
Sure. This is actually from my book, Love Beyond Your Dreams. It's on one page, page 294. And I call it the 5 F's for a great relationship. So the first one is a solid foundation. That means the ability to trust yourself. You have the knowledge to choose correctly and trust the other person. You have confidence in what you're doing individually and confidence in shared moral values with that person you're choosing to date. So the shared foundation, the foundation is strong in two emotionally healthy people. Second is flexibility, meaning you're open-minded, you're caring, you're easygoing, understanding, and emotionally open. You allow that person to have their own belief system. So if they like President A, you like President B, it's their choice. It's their right. You don't fight over it. So you're emotionally open, you're flexible, right? And you understand how to have loving and kind but empowered conversations. There's never a reason to yell and scream at your partner. Number three is fidelity. That means honesty, loyalty, and integrity. I describe integrity as doing the right things when nobody's looking. And if you have two partners doing that, the relationship is so much more at ease and it's peaceful. You just trust and you're confident in the other, because that is also a spiritual to me, doing the right things when nobody's looking is a spiritual concept. The next one is friendship. I always say, be friends first, laugh together, have great experience together before even thinking of getting intimately involved. Can he be your best buddy, your best friend? Be friends first, because think of it. Your friends can last years. My good friends are 25 years, right? In the making. You respect them. They're reliable. They're kind. They act as your best friend. So your partner should be as well. The last one is fun. You have enough common interests, hobbies, and shared activities. You want to make sure you're doing a lot together, open to trying what they like, and you try what they like, and so forth. So some other things are, of course, intimacy is a balance of love and deep friendship, and it's daily affection. You only have intimacy only when you want to be sexually intimate. Intimacy should be happening on a regular and daily basis. Compromise is another one. The ability to negotiate and talk through your issues. Now, couples that come to me that were fighting or on the brink of divorce, they have to learn about each other's childhood traumas. And then the third entity that we're working with is the relationship patterns, like always bringing up the past or always blaming your partner, not seeing your responsibility in this fight. Being able to communicate with love and kindness and really listening to the other partner. So there's so many new communication skills that my couples have to learn, and the ability to compromise. Another is balanced individuals. Both people enjoy healthy self-esteem and a balanced life. They have purpose in life. So they love their work. They have good relationships with their families and friends. There's a balanced life there. Because if you hate your work and you're coming home to your partner every day, there's going to be anger every day. And nobody wants to hear the moaning and complaining, right? You have to get empowered. If you don't like your job, then let's find you another one. Okay. And then the last and the most important quality, believe it or not, due to research, is spirituality. They both have a shared sense of faith, no matter what that is. And one could be Buddhist and one could be Christian, but the spiritual concepts are shared. And they believe in them and they follow them. It is this higher purpose and power that guides the relationship that they both feel accountable to. So those are the fundamentals of a great, emotionally healthy, conscious relationship.
That's a great list.
And that's one page of 400. Yeah. So there's a lot of great research in that book, for sure.
We're all going to have to get that book, because it sounds like, I think what you're saying you have almost sounds like an algorithm for good relationships.
Well, it's just a lot of research time, Kathy, tons and tons of articles and journal articles and research, and always being updated and learning new things. I'm always learning new skills to help my clients best. That's my responsibility, keeping up with my continuing education and so forth. Yeah, it's a job. It's a job, but I love what I do. Yeah, for sure.
That's good. Okay, so you got a lot of free gifts that our listeners can access on your website. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
We'll have links to those underneath your podcast, but do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. Okay. Of course. My website, again, is rianaMilne.com. It's my name. First of all, there's a brand new chat bot. You can get in there and ask any question. And it's amazing how it sounds just like me to answer a question or two. And then you have the ability to reach out and meet with me. The second, there is a free ebook on the homepage called Have the Love You Deserve. And it talks more about what I was speaking of today. So if you were driving and would like the childhood trauma checklist, it's also in that ebook. Then I have the 4 free love tests, which I spoke about today, the childhood trauma checklist, the one for singles, the one for couples, and so forth. My podcast is called Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Riana Milne. I have 125 shows and about 350 audios and videos on my YouTube channel. They're all free. I don't charge. And what else? Free book chapter downloads of Live and Love Beyond Your Dreams, which I mentioned today. So you get the first 60 pages for free. So there's all kinds of free stuff. Starting at the website is probably the best.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here with me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate everything that you shared.
I hope that you found it helpful and that we got a lot of information covered today. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you liked what you heard, please give us a 5-star rating or review on iTunes.